and welcome to my YouTube channel. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I've really missed you a lot. I've missed you a lot, honestly. And this particular topic that we're going to be discussing is the topic of the incel community, honestly. I want you lot to obviously lead this topic with a little bit more of an empathy, to be honest, because the incel community is an incredibly complex and complicating community where you could sometimes hear things about them and you're like, these people are horrible bunch of people, but sometimes you can actually hear things about them and look at the history and where they come from and how they started. And you could somewhat have a little bit of empathy or sympathy towards them based off of their historical backgrounds. So I can understand, obviously, like things from that perspective. Anyways, yeah, so the whole topic is really about understanding the incel, not only understanding the incel from an empathetic perspective, but also the threats or the dangers that they pose to society and to women in general. But before anything, first we have to start by defining fundamentally what an incel is. An incel is effectively a sexually frustrated man who blames all this lack of sex or lack of intimacy or relationships on women, and consequently they hate women, and their lack of intimacy or relationships or sexual relationships with women leads to misogynistic ideas about women, ideas such as women belong in the kitchen, belong in a household as opposed to being in corporate environments, for example. So it stems from a place of misogyny. The ideology can lead to misogyny, but also to be able to understand the particular character or the particular figure of the incel, you have to look at their history and where they started. Somewhere around the 1990s, a woman started a website just simply for people in general that were sexless or were struggling to have sexual intimacies. That's how the whole movement started. Its history can be dated all the way back to the 1990s. That's their history. But what really leads to the creation of the character is obviously a lot of socio-economic factors. One of those socio-economic factors that leads to the creation or the rise of the incel community is the fact that today, 60% of men are single. That's an incredibly staggering number. 60% of men are single, from the ages of 30 and under, are single. That number is only 30% of women. There's a lot of men out there experiencing sexual frustrations, being single, and a lack of intimacy. And that particular age range from 18 to 30 is often the age range where men desire relationships the most. But that's also the particular age range where men are not being able to access relationships as much, hence 60% of them being single. So that's one of the factors that obviously contributes to the rise of the incel community. And another one of them is just the change in social and economic dynamics, really. Women are significantly out-earning men in every aspect of our modern economy. But not only are women out-earning men, but women are generally more educated than men. Historically, back in the 1960s and 70s, there was a 14% higher enrollment rate of men in universities. Today, the statistics has flipped in favor of women, so 15% higher enrollment of women in colleges and universities across the US and Britain similarly. Economically speaking, women are significantly out-earning men. And then as a result of those factors, women have changed the dating scene. So their standards have gone up higher. A lot of these men who might not have accomplished much in their lives find themselves in a position where they just can't find a woman, right? Because these women are becoming more intelligent, more financially successful, and better looking as well, and taller too. Yes, that's one thing that we don't acknowledge, the women are getting taller. So as these women are getting taller, they're also seeking for men that are as tall as themselves. But the incel community do not like that. In fact, a Pew research showed that 1 in 5 men are either not looking for a relationship at the moment or are unable to find a sexual partner. 1 in 5 can't either be in a relationship or can't find a sexual partner. This is concerning, honestly. It is deeply, deeply, deeply concerning. Then obviously all these factors, not being able to find a relationship, a partner, leads to things like sexlessness, for example, which then leads to loneliness, then depression and anxiety, which then obviously leads to hatred towards women, because women are the ones that make them feel negative. It's so effective, the misogyny. And then consequently that leads to violence against women. And then the final straw might be suicide or violence against women, where women are actually killed. And just quite not long ago, somewhere around 2021, an incel called Jake Davison shot and killed 5 people and wounded 2 others and took his own life, right? Not the victims. His victims were his own mother, called Maxine Davison, who was 51 at the time, and a 3-year-old called Sophie Martin, and her father, Lee Martin, who was 43 at the time. He also murdered a woman called someone called Stephen Washington, 59, and Kate Shepard, 66. Right? That's the result of the incel community. Violence. Right? So we have to acknowledge their dangers and the threats that they pose. And one of those threats that they pose is violence against women and violence against people in general. But not only that, we could look at the Stockport killer. I think his name was Axel Rudibacano, for example. I know a lot of people were complaining about immigration. No, the guy was just simply an incel, just like Jake Davison. Axel Rudibacano was an incel, a sexually frustrated individual who got tired of the world and got tired of the rejections that he faces from women. These rejections led to the patterns of emotional sufferings like sexlessness, loneliness, depression, misogyny, violence against women, and the final straw was violence, shooting, killing people. These are really the dangers of the incel community. And if we don't acknowledge these dangers, we might be in real trouble. Honestly, from my own personal opinion, I think incels are the most dangerous groups of individuals that can ever exist. Honestly, think about this. A man full of testosterone, a man who's driven by sex but can't have sex because the source of that sex denies that individual the sex, basically. So he can't have sex because women don't want to have sex with him, right? So that leads to a lot of frustration, anger, and hatred, right? The more he tries, the more he gets rejected. So what does that lead to inevitably or invariably? It leads to incels committing violence against women in astronomical numbers, just like the case of Jake Davison of I think Plymouth, and then Axel Rudicano of Southport. This is what we see consistently. So we have to acknowledge that. But also one of the things that exacerbated the problem when it comes to dating today is dating apps such as Tinder, because it created a false reality of the ability to be able to pick a partner like a shopping list. Right. So instead of meeting people face to face and talking to people and feeling their personality and humanity, it just enabled women the ability to just judge people based off of pictures, or should I say pixels. So a lot of these incels find themselves not being very popular on dating apps. So subsequently, they get rejected, and they might be on a dating app and notice that they've got no matches for like months. You know what I mean? And then obviously that leads to a lot of anger. And then obviously it's an anger that is directed towards people that reject them, and the people just happen to reject them happen to be women. If we look at the percentages and we look at the actual numbers of like the fact that 60% of men are single, and the vast majority of those men have not had sex in 2 years, right? In 2 years, there's a grown-ass man who didn't have sex, not out of his own choice, but because he simply can't get a woman. But not only can he get a woman, these women have raised their standards. Right, so these women have raised their standards because they believe that they can get better. So then the average man just can't have sex because of that. So then that leads to a lot of frustrations, basically. So honestly, we have to really pay attention to the incel community. Right, we've already seen the violence that they're capable of with Axel Rudicano and Jake Davison. And there's stories of the incel community committing high levels of violence, places like the United States of America, for example. So it's a very dangerous community that needs to be monitored extremely well. But also it is vitally important to lead like the approach with more empathetic, to lead it with a more empathetic approach, right? Because I don't think in the incel community is a terrorist organization or extremely right wing. It's not that. It's just a group of people who are just experiencing human emotions, right? The emotion of being rejected by somebody that you like or somebody that you love. And as a result, that leads to, emotional reactions such as anxiety and depression, which then obviously leads to, obviously we can't excuse it, but violence basically. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you obviously taking the time to watch the video. Make sure to smash the like button down below and comment and subscribe, please.